Shalom. First off, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Chakwadash. I want to give double honors to the apostles, elders, and bishops of GMS who have taught us this word and teach us this word today. And I want to give a salutation unto the hopeful elect scattered across the four corners of this earth. And in this lesson, what I wanted to get into, is something that was on my spirit. Going into how in these last days, especially in the times of Jacob's trouble, and once this mark of the beast is enacted, we're gonna have to make sure that we're not falling to the desire of comfort and the desire of our appetites, because what's gonna happen is that when Esau puts everything behind the chip, and what I mean by that, Esau's gonna make it, to where you can't do anything without getting the MOTB, as we know. We've gone over this time and time again. But keeping that reality in mind, that soon to come event in mind, a lot of the things that we're used to right now are going to be stripped from us, and we're going to have to go without. And it reminds me of what was going on with the Israelites when we were in the wilderness after the Lord delivered us out of Egypt, where the Lord had just delivered us from grueling slavery, and is taking us on the way to our promised land. But our people were complaining because they didn't have the food that they had in Egypt. They were complaining because now they dealt with certain uncertainties that they didn't deal with while they were in Egypt. And even though in Egypt they were in slavery, they knew that they had certain things. They knew that they had the Egyptian food that they can go back to. They knew that they had whatever living situation they had while they were in Egypt. And the same thing applies today. We're about to go into these times of hardship, and this flesh, craves comfort. It craves familiarity. It craves, whatever feels good, to where while we're going through the straight gate, it could be that we could be reminiscing on, going back to our regular daily, go to work, come home, kick our feet up, and do the same thing all over again. And while we may be in that situation right now and hate it, when things get hard, when we're having to deal with 100% complete faith and things are difficult, the flesh may want to go back to how things were before because it was easier. Even though we're in captivity right now, even though it's easy to say that we want the kingdom right now, we got to remember that there's hard things that we got to go through to get to the kingdom. So when we're going through those things, are we still going to have that same attitude of being willing to go through those things, or are we going to be in the mindset of wanting those comforts that we once had? Just like we did when we was in the wilderness. Our people, and remember about reincarnation, some of us may be those people in the wilderness who was complaining and wanting to go back to Egypt in the reincarnation. We want to pray that that's not us. We want to pray that we was, that we'll be faithful, that we be of the elect, that we be willing to go through the hardships in this time. So Salaki, without further ado, I want to bring out this precept in Hebrews chapter 3, verse 8, where it says, "Harden not your hearts, as in the provocation, in the day of temptation in the wilderness, when your fathers tempted me, proved me, and saw my works 40 years. So it says, harden not your hearts, as in the provocation. And what did we do to provoke the Lord? It was our lack of faith. Even though the Lord has showed us miracles, He split the Red Sea and allowed us to walk through. He showed all the plagues that he brought upon Egypt. You know how he was blessing us. He gave us food from heaven. He gave us water. You know, he gave us everything that we needed, but it wasn't enough. He gave us everything we needed, but we still wanted more. We were still in a rebellious spirit. We were still in an unfaithful spirit. You know, because what? Because we got uncomfortable. And that's why it says to harden not your hearts. Because again, like I said before, we're in the mindset to where, okay, we're excited about the downfall of Esau's kingdom. We're excited about our kingdom being established. But we have to remember that on the path to our kingdom being established is going to be hard. And through that, our hearts can be hardened to where, you know, we get into the mindset like, man, okay, you know, I do want the kingdom to come, but, you know, man, I wish I could have it easier. Like, no, we have to bear our cross as the Lord did. That's why the scriptures say in Matthew chapter 7, verse 13, it says, enter ye in at the straight gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction. So that wide and broad gate represents easiness. It represents a lack of resistance. And, you know, those who, you know, that straight gate is a position of difficulty. And it's going to be that, you know, we're going to be faced with, you know, two situations. Either in these last days, we're going to be going off of faith, you know, and what does going off of faith look like? We have to realize we're not going to be working jobs. You know, we're not going to be, you know, making any finances. We're not going to know, you know, right now we know, okay, I'm going to get paid on Friday. You know, this is my plan on what I'm going to go get when I go to the grocery store. You know, this is my, you know, we have somewhat of a life in order. But in these last days, we're going to have to completely trust that day by day, hour by hour, the Lord is going to be giving us the things that we need, that, you know, and you know, he's going to be delivering us. And that's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be scary at times. And that could cause someone to avoid and run away from that straight gate and go into the wide gate. And what does that look like? Getting the chip. Because once you get that chip, you know what you're getting. You know, you're getting access to Esau's grid. You're getting access to, you know, all the things that you had before and more in Esau's world. But that straight gate is hard. But you have to remember, all that hardship is worth it. Because in the kingdom, we're going to be beyond comfortable. In the kingdom, we're going to have everything. You know, it's going to be so much more than the comforts that we had on this side. So the comforts on this side ain't worth it. Because, okay, we can be comfortable on this side, but we have to be a slave in order to get those comforts. Okay, we can be comfortable on this side, but we still got to deal with the stresses and the wickedness of this world. You know, Esau's still wearing us down. Esau's still using us. But yeah, you can eat his GMO food. Yeah, you can enjoy his wicked entertainment. All the stuff that we can get in this world is tainted, but it makes our flesh feel good. So at times it feels like that's what we should go after. But no, we got to chase after the kingdom, because everything that's going to make us feel good in the kingdom is going to be pure. It's going to be righteous. It's going to be everything we need. But we have to go through what we need to go through first to get there. And that's why it says here in verse 14, or let me finish 13. It says, enter ye in at the straight gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction, and many there be which go in thereat. Because straight is the gate and narrow is the way which leadeth unto life, and few there be that find it. So only a few people is about to take that hard road because of the things that come with it. And the elect is going to be those who take that hard road. You know, so let's get this last precept. And that'll be it. In 2nd Ezra chapter 8, verse 52, it says, for unto you is paradise open. The tree of life is planted. The time to come is prepared. Plenteousness is made ready. A city is builded, and rest is allowed. Yea, perfect goodness and wisdom. So this is the kingdom that it's talking about. You know, and only in the kingdom is we're going to get true rest, true plenteousness, a true paradise. Now Esau is going to offer us his paradise that he's going to establish on this earth. You know, Esau is going, and you know, this metaverse that he's going to be offering people, this, you know, fake utopia that he's going to be offering people by way of the chip, it's going to be fire, because it's going to be all that we've known up to this point. Again, Esau is going to be doing miracles with his technology. But remember, that true plenteousness, that true rest ain't going to come until the kingdom come. And why is it going to be true in the kingdom? Well, let's read verse 53. It says, the root of evil is sealed up from you. Weakness and the moth is hid from you, and corruption is fled into hell to be forgotten. In the kingdom, we're going to be dwelling in righteousness. That's why all the, you know, the goodness that we'll receive in the kingdom is going to be 100, 1,000 times better than what we get on this side, because it's going to be in righteousness, and we're going to be living immortal, without sorrow, without death, without crying, without pain. You know, it says what? Sorrows are past, and in the end it showed the treasure of immortality. And what's that treasure of immortality? Is righteousness written in our inward parts, and is ruling in righteousness, where every single day we don't have to worry about the evil that we're exposed to in this world. We don't have to worry about the stresses and the anxieties of this world. You know, so again, my point that I wanted to get across in this lesson is that, you know, very soon things are about to get real hard for us, and we don't want to get in the mindset of you know, wishing we could go back to how things were before. This is a rough patch that we're gonna have to get through to get to where we need to be. And that's you know, a mindset to keep. You know, remember those wicked Israelites in the wilderness that was wanting to go back into slavery in Egypt. Even though they was dwelling with the Lord, even though the Lord was about to bring them into their land, and they had to go through some hardship to get to it, you know, they was ready to go back into slavery just so they could get some comfort. You know, just so they could get something that they was used to. And we don't want to be in that same mindset, you know. So Lord willing, this lesson is edifying. Once again, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Charkodash. I want to give double honors to the apostles, elders, and bishops of GMS, and salutation unto the elect. Shalom.